know that they're willing to like work hard and give it their all. Like I could train you how to shoot. I could train you how to like where to stand and where to point. The rest, you can't teach heart.
This is the Construction Veteran Podcast. Construction Veteran Podcast. Connecting and celebrating veterans in construction. Now, here's your host, Scott Friend.
Welcome back to the Construction Veteran Podcast. I'm Scott Friend. Today I'm excited to bring to you guys Tim Welcher, a former Special Forces soldier who now leads the way in the industry in safety. Let's dig into it. Hey Tim, what's going on, man?
Hi Scott, how you doing?
I'm good. So Tim and I haven't had the pleasure of meeting in person yet, but we do have a good mutual acquaintance in Adam Hoots, who's real big in the lean construction side of the industry. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But I did a podcast episode with the Lean Builder, which Adam hosts, and Adam teamed Tim and I up together, thought it'd be a good idea to meet. So glad to finally get you on here, man.
Absolutely. We've been going back and forth. It's good to finally make the connection.
Yeah, man, it's every guest I have to keep kicking the can down the road because, I don't do this full time, knock on wood yet, but things are busy in the industry, which is good. Things are booming. So, Tim, let's talk about, this being the construction veteran. Let's talk about your service background, what you did, where you're from, and what you did throughout your career.
Sure. Obviously, you got a minute, so let's go. I joined the Army Reserves in 1997. And I never knew anybody in the military. I just kind of thought it would be a fun thing to do, but wasn't ready to jump right in. And sure enough, I found out I loved it. So as soon as I got through like basic and AIT, it's like, sign me up. I want to go active duty. I want to be an airborne ranger. And that took several years to finally break the contract. But about 4 years in, I was able to go active duty. I had my wish of airborne ranger contract. And went back to basic training in August of 2001. And obviously, if you do the math, the next month, September 11th happened. And we were on the machine gun range in basic training. 9/11 happened. And, basically an airborne school, the recruiters came by and said, hey, if you have a ranger contract, you can try out for special forces. So I raised my hands and signed me up. And went on to the Q course, graduated the Q course, went to 3rd Special Forces Group. I started off as a 18 Charlie, which is a Special Forces Engineer Sergeant, basically responsible for light construction and demolitions. Did 3 combat deployments to Afghanistan during that time. Then I became an instructor at the NCO Academy, Non-Commissioned Officers Academy. And Special Forces has their own academy there at Camp McCall, where we combined, then it was PLDC and BNOC, or Primary Leadership Development Course, Basic Non-Commissioned Officers Course. I think then it changed to a Warrior Leaders Course and Advanced Leaders Course. Regardless, I was a NCO Academy instructor for 3 years. Then I made the rank of E8, Master Sergeant, and was able to be in charge of a free fall team, better known as a Halo team. I've done a couple deployments then, and then after my team sergeant time, I was blessed with the opportunity to do my hobby inside of the Army. So I ran the 3rd Special Forces Group Combatives program, where I got to train Green Berets, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and a lot of CQB tactics and how to have a better force continuum using their hands instead of just always going to the gun. Then I retired about 2 years ago, and now I'm in the construction industry.
Yeah, so it's funny. So I haven't talked about this on episodes yet. I posted it on my social media, but I recently got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Did not know you did that, which was kind of funny. And you reached out, so we've been kind of nerding out together and chit-chatting about the journey. And I believe your son got involved. You got to promote him to brown belt. Is that correct?
No, I'm a brown belt. My son is a gray and white belt.
Gotcha.
He's a wrestler now. We're in Pennsylvania, and it's like, hey, he's a freshman in high school. I'm like, you are going to wrestle. You can hit the pause button on jiu-jitsu. That'll always be there for you. But be a wrestler.
That's smart. I want to ask, so the combatives, you got to teach jujitsu and Muay Thai, you said?
Yeah, I mean, there's in the combatives program. So basically, the Army has the Modern Army Combatives program, which incorporates a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, ground fighting techniques, and it also has a lot of Muay Thai as far as fighting from a clinch, knees, elbows, punches, kicks, etc. And that bleeds over into the Special Operations Combatives program, where we do a lot of the similar things, but we also incorporated fighting with weapon systems, both rifle and pistol, from kit. And a lot of it's focused around clearing rooms and how to deal with compliant personnel in the rooms or even non-compliant. So that's a big aspect of it when you look into like CQB is room clearing, right? Everybody thinks of putting the targets up and you just go in all sexy, blow the door down, and just take out the targets. But in reality, there are a lot of people that are innocent, hands are up, women, children, etc. And you just have to be able to manage all this. Sometimes you can have somebody with their hands up, and it turns out, as you're trying to move them to the center of the room, they become combative. You have to be able to deal with that without unnecessarily taking somebody's life.
Yeah, I think that's wise, using it as kind of a non-lethal way to subdue them. Well, man, if we're ever in the same area, it'd be an honor to roll with you. I'm still a lowly little white belt, but I could learn a lot from you.
Oh, that's the best time is grabbing a white belt, especially one that's motivated, knows that they want to learn and don't think they know everything yet.
Yeah,
Happy. It'd be my pleasure.
I wouldn't say I got humbled real quick. I came in it knowing, hey, I'm a lot older than most of these guys. The dudes in their young 20s that are just ready to get after it. I got to be careful. I was in a motorcycle wreck and I don't want to hurt myself too bad. I did tweak my back a little bit, not terrible, but yeah, I'm just taking it easy, taking it slow, really enjoying the journey and learn as much as I can.
Yeah, that's smart. Tap early, tap often. I had my neck fused when I was a white belt, so my first year training jiu-jitsu. Not necessarily a jiu-jitsu injury. It could have been from jumping out of planes with night vision goggles on and all that type of stuff, riding around in a turret. So I'm sure there was a lot of wear and tear already. But my neck was fused as a white belt, and the doctor told me I'd never be able to do jiu-jitsu again. And here I am 15 years later, still training.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
You talk about humbling.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, since you brought up the humble story, let me tell you about my first day of jiu-jitsu. Knowing that I was about to be an instructor in the Special Forces Q course, I knew I was going to be home for about 3 years. So I've always wanted to try this. Let me give it a try. So I go in and they pair me up, against a couple people for practice, and then I go against this kid, and I've 3 combat deployments. I was an E7 Green Beret. Like I was a stud.
Yeah, you're like, I'm going to destroy this guy.
And granted, you're not like striking him or anything, but this 17-year-old kid submitted me, and I had to go home and be like, man, babe, I got submitted by this 17-year-old kid. He tapped me out like 3 times in 5 minutes. And then I go back for my next class, a couple of classes later, and then I come back and tell her, like, hey, that 17-year-old that tapped me out, he's actually 15.
Oh, wow.
So that's I'm awesome. Like, you know what? There is a magic to this. I am never quitting.
Yeah, it's really cool to me to see guys. Like there was a dude, I want to say he's a purple belt at our school. And man, I probably outweigh this guy by at least 50 pounds. I mean, I'm 220 and I'm not like jacked, but I'm a pretty bigger guy. And he just tossed me around like a rag doll. And it was humbling for sure. And then I also saw, we had a guy a few weeks ago that he had to have been in his late 60s, early 70s coming in, and it was like his second class. And it was really cool to see that. Starting at that age is just really cool to see. A very humbling experience. And I said, hey, don't take this the wrong way. I mean, I'm honored to see you here. I look up to you, man. I mean, that's neat.
No, I mean, that's what one of the beauties of jiu-jitsu is everybody in that room has gone through that same experience. Like I still get humbled, and it's what you do with it, right? Some people get that taste, that humble, and they say, screw that, I'm never coming back. And others say, all right, I'm never quitting. So yeah, I think that like mindset in that room or that dojo, whatever you call it, we all share a common bond. And heck, all of my friends do jiu-jitsu or have done jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, very cool. I want to ask you a question about your service real quick. Is there any chance you were in Afghanistan like late 2009 to early 2010?
No. 2008 to 2011, I was an instructor.
Oh man, we just missed each other because third group was out there when we did JSOC support. So I was curious if we might
Nice.
have ran across each other and didn't even realize it.
Yeah, third group doesn't stop. They're always out there.
Yeah, it seems like it, man. Yeah, and that special operations community, it seems like everybody's just go, go, go. And have you seen that slow down a little bit here lately in the last couple of years?
Well, honestly, I've been out for 2 years, so I've been away from it. And the last 5 years of my career, I was in the dojo. So
yeah, man,
but
that's a good
everybody was constantly
soundbite.
going.
That's really cool, man. It sounds like you had a good run. So, what are you doing now in the industry?
So in the construction industry, right now I work for a company called EDA Contractors, where I am the Director of Safety and Operational Excellence. I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but it's an awesome job. I got to say, I love it.
Well, so we know what safety is. Talk to me about operational excellence. What does that mean at your company?
Sure. So it's interesting. How I got into this company was based off of my Lean Six Sigma background. I have a Lean Six Sigma black belt, and it was kind of always a passion of mine. I think it kind of ties to like either the special forces training or even jujitsu, where you're looking for efficient, effective processes, right? I worked for Amazon as an operations manager for a year, and that was a little rough, 2:00 in the morning till noon, running a site at a delivery station. I was like, okay, I'm retired. Let me look for something else. And I saw this post on Indeed. I was looking for Lean Six Sigma, right? They wanted to do lean training in this construction company. And at EDA, we're a subcontractor level or a trade partner. And to me, it just sounded really cool because lean is primarily targeted for the manufacturing industry, and you could recognize improvements really fast, whether it's at like an Amazon with packages or a Toyota factory, right? But construction that's a challenge. So I hopped right in, even though I'm not like complete expert. I'm just school trained as far as Lean Six Sigma. So not a ton of real world experience, being shortly retired from the Army. Fortunate at EDA, Ed DeAngelis, the owner, he's got a great vision and at a subcontractor level to support it the way he does. Say, hey, I think this is going to be good for my company, good to reach that next level. I was bought in. So basically, all I really try and do is help improve their processes if I can. And I think there's a lot of bleed over from the military to the construction industry. I see it every day with just the volatility or the uncertainty on the different job sites, all the different situations the guys have to deal with. It's not the same as a factory where it's every day moving this package where you could shave seconds off. There's always some new problem. And if I could help by either bringing a lean principle or something from my experience in the military where it's leadership or just organizational skills, anything I could do for these guys is a benefit.
So you mentioned it's used typically in manufacturing. So for those folks who don't really know what lean is, what would you say a lean practitioner does in the construction industry?
So that's an interesting question, right? Because there's different layers in the construction industry. You said, with Adam Hoots, right, and the lean builder, it seems like a lot of it is really focused on the general contractor's perspective of lean, where you're doing pool planning and trying to do the train of trades and make sure everybody's all meeting their commitments and you're removing some of the waste and making sure that people are finishing on time so the next trade can. And it's a whole scheduling exercise. For a subcontractor level, it's a little different because we're kind of impacted by those GCs. If the GC doesn't want to do that, obviously that impacts us. Or if there's a GC or general contractor that does, we have to follow suit there. So how do we do it on our own, right? So in our focus, we just want to be the leader, right? We want to make sure that we're the best subcontractor out there. So if we're already doing our daily huddles and we're already planning the certain way, and we're making sure that we could be the on the front of these daily huddles or the pool planning exercises and activities, and basically lead by example for the other trades, then maybe it'll be even more successful. But there's little things. So we also kind of basically manufacture some of the panels. I mean, so EDA handles the whole exterior facade, whether it's metal panel facade or roofing or masonry. So in our shop, they'll make the panels or deliver them out to the sites, and basically we call it hubs and spokes. So you have our main hub where you have all the supplies, materials, and you got to deliver that to all the different job sites. So if we could shave off some of the time there, make sure that's an effective, efficient process, we could impact more of our sites, making sure they get the deliveries on time in the right quantity, et cetera.
I'd say that there's another layer to it also. What do you think from like the personnel and the people side has lean had an impact on our industry with?
So like the lean journey for the subcontractor level is still kind of new. You could see it a lot in the general contractor level, where they're kind of bought in, they understand the respect for people, and they understand that people are what make the processes work. So I could see a lot of benefits in there. And I think there's a misconception with the word lean. When people hear it, they think it's a reduction in manpower. And I think it's not the case. I think if you respect the people and you do a thing called a gemba, like a gemba walk is where you go see where the work happens. Right? So the vice presidents in the company, the superintendents, and make sure they go out to the site to hear from the foreman and the journeyman out there. They want to see what they're experiencing in the field. And by showing that level of respect, they're able to gain some of the knowledge instead of just that, boss is here, make sure it looks good, or safety's here, put your gloves and glasses on. They actually feel more connected, and it's a better culture, and it aids in the improvement of the processes.
Yeah, very well put. So I want to back up too. So you first got out, you went to work for Amazon. How did you stumble upon what you're doing now?
Yeah, that was again basically just off of a LinkedIn ad or an Indeed ad. I think it was on both from the company. I didn't really wasn't like, hey, I really want to work for a construction company. It didn't cross my mind as far as that was the goal. Honestly, the initial goal was to get out of Amazon, as bad as that sounds. But having a tiny bit of construction experience as a special forces engineer sergeant, it was an easy transition because I understood some of the projects. So, for example, in Afghanistan, one of the main construction projects we ran was about $5 to $7 million, if I remember correctly, and we had to negotiate for a mountaintop. So, speaking with the district governor and the chief of police and all the different village elders in the tribe, negotiated for a mountain. We brought in a lot of heavy equipment, shaved the top of the mountain off, pushed it out, and created a base on top of the mountain. And on that base, we had, a restroom, fuel point, helicopter pad, kitchen, gym, and enough space to house 77 people. And that was a bit of a construction effort, considering we've been rocketed in the middle of trying to build it, and in firefights and et cetera. So it's funny to say, like, oh yeah, it's just an engineer sergeant or just on the special forces team, but yeah, there's some construction experience involved with that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had a guy come on. He was, man, you would have been my first engineer if I had gotten you on earlier, but I did a show with another 18 Charlie series guy that retired out, and it's really neat to see all the different things that you guys get to learn. I mean, obviously there's demolition involved, but then you have the skills basically to build a house, which is kind of like the CBs. You learn the basics of the trade, so there is that opportunity to get out and get involved in the industry. But given your experience in leadership, you had that awesome opportunity to kind of step into a leadership role.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and honestly, had the timing been different, maybe if I got out at the year 10 mark instead of doing 24 years of service, I could have been in a different state, a different mental state or experience level. And they have great programs out. I don't know if it's in your area as far as the helmets to hardhats. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, very familiar with that. Yep.
Yeah, I know we have a former Marine that's one of our second hands on a crew, and that's how he got in. And it sounds like an amazing program. I think that would have been a great route, and I recommend it to any service member getting out trying to go into construction. And if they haven't considered construction, I strongly recommend them considering it.
Yeah, the tough thing about helmets to hard hats, it's a union company, and so it's not going to be available everywhere. Like here in Texas, we're not very, we don't have too many unions. We do have some, but I would say definitely up kind of northeast where you're at, Pennsylvania. So the northern states for sure. Yeah, exactly. So
we only use union.
Yeah, and then they've got a really heavy Canadian presence as well. Helmets to hard hat does. I do have some listeners in Canada, so that's really cool. So if you guys are up there, check that out. And there's other programs that are newer. I'm sure they were there when you got out the SkillBridge. So SkillBridge is a huge one.
SkillBridge does construction.
SkillBridge they're to the best of my knowledge. I mean, they'll welcome any kind of companies, and I have had some companies down here that have started to get involved in it. I don't know the ins and outs of it. We do have a company down here called Forge Now, which was started by a couple of West Point guys, so don't hold that against them. But that was started by 2 former Army officers, and they take folks out and teach them the trade. And they're one of the few schools, I don't know if this is just locally or US-wide, but they're one of the few schools that you can use your GI Bill to learn that trade. And they just started teaming up with SkillBridge, and they actually provide a facilities manager class too. So there's certainly options out there through SkillBridge. The company here is called Forge Now.
Nice.
And they're based here in Dallas. Trying to team up with them on some stuff. It's just really cool to see guys out, and they have this opportunity to step into a trade that could pay pretty well. So I know they do electrical. I want to say they do HVAC. I'm not sure if they do plumbing, but they just started a facilities manager class, which I have not heard of somebody doing that before. And that's a pretty good career path for someone.
That's phenomenal. I tell you, the SkillBridge, or where I was in Special Forces, we had a connection to the SOCOM's Care Coalition, and they actually provided me with they called it a fellowship, I believe, where I did, I think it was 3 months with Campbell Soup. So, again, they didn't have it already set up. I had to coordinate it and make it all happen. But Campbell Soup Factory is located nearby Fort Bragg, or now I think it's called Fort Liberty. Coordinated for that fellowship. I did 3 months with Campbell Soup is in the continuous improvement section. Again, that kind of helped focus my lean background a bit. But anytime any soldier getting out has an opportunity to take a SkillBridge opportunity or a fellowship, internship, work with Forge Now, do it. There's so many benefits out there that are designed to help people in that transitioning phase, which is difficult for a lot of people. And then there's a lot of people that just don't, take any of the help that's offered. It's sad to see.
Yeah, and sometimes, one of my former guests, Trevor Murray, he was a 10th group guy. He basically had to create his own SkillBridge, as he called it. So sometimes you have to go down that path if it's not readily available to find a company you want to work for. I just did another interview where we talked about shadowing people, if that's an opportunity. So I think the hardest part is just taking the first step. And we really have no excuse now with the whole world at our fingertips to find an opportunity. And if you're a young soldier getting out, you've got an even better opportunity. If you don't, let's say you don't have a family, you're not married, you don't have kids, you really have the opportunity to go anywhere. Or if you want to go home, there might be something back there. But there's really, not to sound harsh or anything, but there's not an excuse for you not to find something that's available.
Absolutely. And that's not harsh at all. It's reality.
Yeah. So let's talk about, and this is going to be broad. How is your service specifically in the SF path? How do you think that has best trained you to do what you're doing now, or in the industry as a whole?
Yeah, that's definitely a very broad question, right? There's so many different, lessons learned throughout the military career. Again, 24 years of service. I'm trying to narrow down just a couple lessons, but let's focus on the part of safety right now. So I recently took over the safety department. Now, I don't have a safety background per se, like I don't have the certifications yet, but when you jump out of planes for a living and you several hundred combat missions under your belt, you tend to have an eye for it. You tend to understand what a risk assessment is and how to identify hazards, implement the controls. So I would say if anybody's like in the military where they maybe airborne or maybe they do high risk events, like look into that safety role, because it's a very easy transition because you understand it, whether you're running a range or running a demolitions range, jumping out of planes. Like you have to have extreme attention to detail and be meticulous with people's lives. Lives are at stake. So I would definitely say that those experiences and understanding what risk really is and understanding where danger lies and how fast something bad could happen, right? Even when you're doing everything right, bad things happen sometimes. But you have to have your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency plans, get it all together. And that's, I think that's probably a huge benefit that service members can bring over to the construction industry, is that keen eyesight. Now, when it comes to the operational excellence side of things, trying to look for efficiencies, trying to look for, how to better that process. That's something that we do all the time, right? I usually equate it to transitioning from the rifle to your pistol, right? If your rifle goes down, you have to transition, draw your secondary, draw your pistol out. So fractions of a second is what you need to shave off in order to be successful in that engagement, right? So minimizing the waste of motion, right? Cutting out all the waste out. And I will see guys spend so much time configuring their kit or drilling, dropping the rifle, drawing their pistol, like just drilling it over and over and over again. It's like, wow, that's what we do, right? Like, okay, let's analyze this. Let's define what the problem is. It's all right, here we are. Where do we need to be? We need to be this fast. This is my gap. Do your needs assessment and then execute, right? And that's the same thing in jiu-jitsu. So it's not just alone in the military. Like, I'm sure, I know you only have a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but you're going to find it's like, oh man, I was using a lot of muscle using that technique. And some people are just, smile on their face, choking you out effortlessly. You'll get there, but it takes a lot of time and a lot of dedication. And I think that the military kind of brings that level of dedication and effort into making things better, even if it is just a fraction of a second. It matters.
Yeah, and that's not something you picked up right away. So that humility, whether it's in jiu-jitsu or in the service, it took you a while to get to that point, right? So I keep seeing a lot of these memes lately of guys looking up to like Green Berets and, oh, I could never be that. But, these guys like yourself didn't start out as a Green Beret. You started out as a kid that decided to join up and had an opportunity and just stuck with it and went with it. It wasn't an overnight success.
Oh, definitely not. Definitely not.
I want to talk about the safety thing real quick too. I'll just say I have not met a single veteran that's gotten into that role that doesn't enjoy it on the safety side of things, because like you said, you have these people's lives at stake there in the service and here in this industry as well. I mean, we're working on, I don't care if you're working on a $2 million job, there's going to be something that's unsafe. And then on a $200 million job, obviously there's a lot more hazards there. You're talking cranes, heavy equipment, large panels like you guys do. So I think that fits really well, because especially from like an NCO to senior NCO standpoint, those guys transition really well, in my opinion, because they're already used to taking care of their troops. They're used to watching out for every individual, regardless of what their stance is, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very accurate statement. I will say, just in a little experience that I've had with my company now, just recently taking over the role of safety, we do a lot of leading edge work on the rooftops, right? And pretty much every building in Philadelphia we've had our hands on. As I'm doing the transition, I asked one of the roofers, like, okay, well, what's your plan if you fall off the edge and you're hanging by your SRL or your self-retracting lifeline or lanyard, excuse me. Edit that out too. See, I'm new with safety, so
That's all right.
the nomenclature.
That's all right.
But basically, so I asked one of the guys, like, what happens if you're doing this leading edge work and you fall over the edge and you're suspended there because you're connected as you're supposed to your fall arrest system and all that, and now you're in your harness. How do you get back up? What's your plan? And typically the plan is to call 911. Okay, that makes sense. And then obviously they focus on the orthostatic shock. Like, well, we have the leg straps to make sure your arteries aren't getting cut off and you can sit in there, but you're going to wait for rescue. To me, that wasn't an option. So I challenged the guys, and we were doing better at it. We actually developed a plan that has, sections for if they're conscious or if they're unconscious. And again, like I said, the owner of the company's bought in and purchased new equipment so that we have an actionable plan for, worst case scenario. Did somebody fall off the edge? How are we going to retrieve them? Right? We're going to be the first responders to help lower that rescue ladder down so they can climb back up, or attach a winch to them and reel them back in. And I think going to that level of detail and having the full support of the company to, be the leader in the industry, make sure that we have all these things, and then make sure that, we're training the people. That comes at a cost, right? You're training union tradesmen on, hey, this is how you climb a ladder and you're hanging off the side of the building. But we're putting our money where our mouth is and making sure it's happening because we care about our guys.
Yeah, I love that you said you guys are striving to be the best in the industry too at that. And it's so important, man. I can see a little bit of your background and what you're doing too. You got that primary, secondary, and tertiary plan if something goes wrong, right? If the guy's unconscious, because it's great to think of it one way. Perfect case scenario, he falls off, he's conscious, you can reach him, easily get him back in, but that's not always going to be the case, right? So I love that you're looking at it from all those different angles and poking holes in the plan. Not that the plan was bad, but you're poking holes in it.
Exactly. And I tell you, it's not, you're right. It's not that the plan was bad. It was definitely, it was adequate, and it made sense. But, you look at a civilian mindset versus a military, and those are the things you have to look at. I mean, being a static line jump master or a free fall jump master, free fall jump master, you don't typically have a towed parachutist, but in static line jump master, if airborne trooper jumps out and he's hanging there, you have to, retrieve him back in. And there's simple systems to do that, but the amount of training that goes into it is, it's remarkable. Like, you're always drilling it. You're always, I spent most of my time on a free fall team, but every day we were jumping, we had to read a half-hour sustained airborne training and make sure you cover the emergency procedures and all that. So I believe in attention to detail, and I believe in the training.
Yeah, so I'm sneaky. I just got you to answer that other question you weren't sure how to answer. How about that?
Which one was that?
That's how your service has helped you, I think. I mean, you have this very unique look at how we do things in the industry, and I think what I value about getting different veterans into the industry from all different backgrounds is that, one, we have so many aspects of this industry that people don't even think of. Because, I mean, I knew before I got into it, all I thought of was like a project manager or superintendent, not even thinking of safety as a role, quality control, administration, finance, tech,
project
all
management.
These different things. So you got all these different things, and there's so much that people can bring to the industry, and they don't necessarily have to have an engineering background.
Absolutely. And, that was very eye-opening. I know during the transition process for retirement, you do the mandatory briefings, and somebody came in and said, hey, have you ever thought about manufacturing? I was like, no. Like, well, there's other jobs instead of just sitting on the line. They have all the different roles. And it's like, that kind of made me think. And I think that's how I got into Amazon. I wish there was somebody from construction there saying, hey, there's more to it than just this. Now, don't get me wrong, like the trades, that's beautiful. Like, I'll get to that in a second, but it doesn't necessarily reach out to every soldier, right? If you could tell everybody in the retiring process, every MOS that's getting out, like, hey, there's an HR department here. There's a safety department. There's project managers. There's estimators. There's so many different things. It might open their eyes versus when they look at the trades, you look at starting over again. Like, oh, well, in order to do that, I have to be trained and I have to get XYZ in order to get to here. You always have to start at the bottom. I think the military does a disservice by making people think that. It's just, kind of goes along with the nature. But I will say, having moved to the construction industry, one of the, I'm trying to word this properly, but one of the best parts about my job is when I look at the guys, like every time I go out to the field, one, it reminds me of, being on a deployment, just all the construction equipment and walking the gravel and whatnot. Like, it's pretty cool to see. Or even if I get to the top of a high-rise building, like, oh yeah, this feels like I'm under canopy. But working with the crews, they remind me so much of Special Forces team. And I look around to my left and right, and like, you guys, you make it all worth it. You were the hardworking Americans that I was fighting for, and it makes, my 24 years of service just feel worth it. And I'm so appreciative of what they do, and they just don't realize the similarities between the two worlds.
I love that, Tim. That's so cool to hear, especially from a guy of your caliber. And there are a lot of similarities between the trades folks and guys that served. I think there's a lot of mutual respect there, because typically, I'm not going to say everybody, but typically, those who served, regardless of role, and people in the trades, regardless of what their trade might be, there's that hardworking, good moral value type of people that are out there just getting after it.
Yeah, no, I would take so many of them on a deployment, no problem. There's no questions asked. Hop in the truck, let's go. There's so many good people.
That's cool.
And I know that they're willing to like work hard and give it their all. Like, I could train you how to shoot. I could train you how to like where to stand and where to point. The rest, you can't teach heart.
Yeah, when I was an operations manager hiring folks, the one thing I used to say was, I can't train integrity. I got to have the people with the right mindset and just the heart to do it. The skills we can train. It's going to take you time, but I want to make sure I have the right person on my team that's willing to get it done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I like that you also kind of shine some light on the support elements. I would say it's similar to like a team. So you got the ODA, but then you've got all these folks that are back supporting them. So, you have to have a logistics team. You have to get some sort of supplies out there to you guys. You have to have mechanics fixing your vehicles. I would say the meat and potatoes of the construction industry is the trades, but at the same time, we need people that are making sure these guys get paid, making sure they have health care, all that stuff to support the building effort. So I think that's where I see the parallel between the veteran community specific to you guys, like special operations, into construction. Is there's the boots on ground, but those boots wouldn't be on ground without somebody supplying those boots.
It's interesting, and I'm glad that you bring it up, because I've seen both sides of it, right? Obviously, being the main effort, being on a team out out in Afghanistan or whatever, like, you rely on your support. And I've definitely seen a lot of team guys take it for granted. Some of them get egotistical. There's a lot of different things or baggage that goes along with it, right? Like, they should be supporting me, or it's because of us. It goes back and forth. And then a supporting element would typically look like, well, you need us to get your stuff done. And I see it in the construction industry too, where, like, oh, we have to put the roof on, or we have to hang the panels in order to pay for you. It's like, yeah, but we print your paycheck. Like, it goes back and forth. So it is kind of funny to see that same, not necessarily like conflict, but just the same points of view from both perspectives. And I think one of the things that made me successful as a Special Forces team sergeant was being able to work that relationship and respect the supporting staff that we had. Because if you recognize that you need them, and you recognize them for the hardworking people they are, and like, hey, you're supporting me, I appreciate it. Like, thank you. They do it even better. Like, they're now, they don't feel like they're getting beat up about it, or like, obviously it has to be genuine. You can't just say like, oh, thank you. Like, you have to mean it, and you have to really believe it. But I see that on both sides. Same for a supporting soldier or a supporting or shared service role within any organization. It's like, yeah, you're a supporting guy, but know your role. Know you're there to help them and there to help you. It would make the world a lot better if people kind of just get over their positions, just be a little humble.
Yeah, it's got to be that symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely.
It's super cliche to say, but the chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And I've been in those shoes too. Is like that. I was the angry superintendent. Like, man, why aren't they getting the submittals in so I can get my product? But at the same time, not realizing maybe something that they were dealing with in the office that was inhibiting that from getting done. So why don't I jump in and help? so we can all accomplish this as one team. Because to relate it back to your background, if you're just sitting there complaining about the guy, back in garrison or whatever, not getting something done, what good are you doing? You're just complaining. You're not helping the situation. And the same thing applies to us in the field.
That's a great point that you bring up. So at Amazon, they have a saying, it says, attack the process and engage the people, right? So don't just blame the people first. Like, okay, you're not getting the supplies that you needed, right? So what's the process? Maybe there's something that you were missing, right? So if you reach out, say, hey, I'm noticing there's a delay in this process here. Obviously, that's a defect. We got waste here. Like, that's really going to Gemba. Let me see it through your lens. Let me see what is actually going on in your process. And then you could identify, like, oh man, you're getting bogged down here and here and here because a lot of mistakes from the other superintendents in your company. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up. But by attacking their process, you could understand how to make it easier for them. And then in turn, it just takes away that choke point.
Yeah, I would relate it to safety. When an incident does happen, you have that report that let's get to the bottom of what really happened. Are the guys tired? Are they working too many hours? Like, let's talk about really what's going on. It's not just that incident that occurred. What led up to that incident?
It's interesting you say that too, because that's where I think operational excellence and safety go hand in hand. Root cause analysis is a standard tool inside of the Lean Six Sigma tool belt. Doing the 5 whys or the fishbone diagram, trying to find out why that happened, not, oh, you were doing this. Or, typically people will do their root cause analysis and blame it on training. And they just stop right there. Oh, he wasn't trained. It's like, okay, why wasn't he trained? Why did you not provide him the training? Let's keep on digging further. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So let me kind of switch gears here. So I'm not trying to make you regret any of your former decisions, but if you were to go back and maybe tweak some things along your journey to where you got today, and you don't have to, but is there anything maybe you would have changed to kind of become more streamlined, more successful?
Yes. So, and then with it, hopefully I can give a little advice if anybody's in the same position, right? So while retiring from the Army, obviously in that transition process, and I'm sure people talk about how difficult it is to translate your military resume to civilian talk, right? So one of the ways that I combated that was to try and get a lot of certifications to make sure it made sense, right? So leading missions, leading airborne operations, to me that kind of resonated with project management. So I got the PMP certification. I had a passion for Lean Six Sigma and process improvement, so I got the Lean Six Sigma green belt before retiring. I even wanted to make sure I showed that I had an understanding of personnel management, so I got the Associate Professional and Human Resources certification, so the APHR. And then I was like, okay, I want to make sure they know that I could translate safety experiences, so I did the OSHA 30 in the general industry. Wish I would have done the construction one though, because I just had to do that one now, even though I had the general one. But I think with the safety, I think there are a lot of areas where you could really focus in on it. I think trying to chase an ASP, like the Associate Safety Professional, or trying to get some of those certifications to really lean in onto the safety training that the military provides you would have been helpful. That would have been the only thing I would have changed as far as getting those different skill sets. Right now I'm taking a master's degree, doing a master's degree program at Penn State for organization development and change management. Probably would have started that sooner if I could have. So, I got one more year left, but that education is huge. I was fortunate enough to finish my undergrad just a few years before retiring in business management. But I would say to any soldier, continue on that civilian education path. I know I gave myself the excuse that I was focusing on life-saving skills and survivability and lethality skills. Let me do all of these cool guy schools just to make sure that I'm effective on the battlefield and I can come home. And maybe that's what it took to make sure I came home. but I probably wouldn't have neglected some of those civilian trainings throughout that long period, right? Like 20 years. Fortunately, I knocked some of it out, but I probably would have done it sooner. And then I guess, obviously I was lucky. I was fortunate enough to go retire all the way through, but had I gotten out sooner, I would have been more open to the construction industry, and starting over would have been fine. Like doing the apprentice program, looking into the journeyman, the route. Like it is an impressive field. There's so much opportunity. I wish I would have been more aware of it then to prepare for it.
Yeah, I think the education piece of it is a lot more accessible now than it has been.
Absolutely.
And every base or post has some sort of educational assistance that you can go talk to. And like, I said earlier, there's really no excuse not to take the first step. It's a challenging one. And I think from your position, it's tough when you retire out, in my opinion, as like a master sergeant or that senior NCO level, to humble yourself enough to say, hey, your title might be assistant, your title might be bottom of the barrel, but you're more than likely going to climb that ladder a little quicker than your peers. And yeah, you might be a little older than them, but you bring a lot of skills to the table that these guys don't.
Yeah. And even if it's a level playing field with skills, or even if they have more education away, you're going to bring a lot of heart in there and a lot of intestinal fortitude.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. So I want to take not a dark turn, but the industry's tough, man. And the service is tough. The industry's tough. And we have some very similar struggles. Suicide's very prevalent in the service as well as this industry, as is alcoholism, drug abuse. If you've got someone that's just struggling, that is a vet that's in the industry, because I know firsthand it can really beat you down a lot of the long days and you're not accomplishing the goals you want to. What would you say to try to motivate that individual?
No, that's definitely an interesting question, right? So initially, my head went to what we do at EDA. Like every year, we have what's called a packed event, and basically those struggles that you're talking about manifest in different ways. So, I would say that throughout the construction industry, suicide, drug use, like all the bad thing that happens in the Army, it's prevalent in there. So again, our owner is a big proponent into making sure people get the help and help and care that they need. To the fact that if they come up and say, hey, like I need help, he'll make sure they have a job afterwards. So they'll help them get the services needed, whether it's for depression or narcotic abuse, whatever the case, and they still have a place when they come back. No questions asked, as long as they they commit to it. And I think that's phenomenal. So when you see people in this industry actually care, that also allows other people to soften up and recognize, see life through a different lens and show empathy and say, oh, it's okay to care for your buddy. It's okay to, just be there for somebody. Now in the military, like I've known, quite a few people who've committed suicide. And it's always a case, right? Like, oh, hindsight 2020, like, oh yeah, these signs were there. These signs were there. So being able to recognize the signs sooner is always helps. So training's good. As far as helping anybody through any difficult times, like honestly, I haven't had any calls from any friends saying like, hey, I'm at that point. But what I always typically keep myself open to, obviously that, like if anybody calls, I'm there. But helping service members transition, it's like, hey, I don't need to know who you are. If you're going through the situation, I'm here to help. If somebody's into considering construction or they are dealing with any difficulties, like they can reach out. That's the hardest part, though. It's like you said several times in this discussion, like that first step's hard. I don't know if I quite answered that. I know it's such a big, broad topic, but
yeah, I don't think there's really ever a perfect or right answer for that. And I think I selfishly asked that question to my guests because there's been times in my career that I need to hear, what do I do? And there's been times, I mean, I'll be honest, that I've just wanted to give up, because it's a tough industry. So veteran or not, it's a hard industry sometimes. And what I've said earlier episodes is that I think the beauty of this, and I'm not telling everybody to just quit their job, but you have a lot more freedom now on the civilian side than you certainly did being tied into a contract in the service. So if things just aren't working out, it's not the end of the road. I mean, I've switched companies a few times because maybe there was just a difference of opinion, or maybe the culture went downhill and it just wasn't a right fit for both of us. So I think that's what I try to get people to focus on, is that, look, you're not done yet. There's something there for you, but let's find out what that is.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I came across that when I was at Amazon, doing post retirement, hopping into that job where it was a grind. And I was like, I put the little step counter on. I was doing like 15 miles a day and the little safety shoes on concrete floors from 2 a.m. until noon, sometimes even 2 p.m. And I was like, okay, it's a little bit much. And it was a great paying job. It was hard to leave, but I found a home with EDA. Just wanted to do the culture and the values that they actually have, and the people that are there. And I see a lot of other subcontractors out there. I see some of the general contractors, and you can see big name general contractors, or and some people would probably say, oh wow, this is the name you go to. They're a huge brand. But I would highly advise people to consider that family business, right? So EDA is a family run business, and they have a family run feel to it, and you're part of that family, and it's pretty cool to see. I probably that whole Amazon, the big name captured me trying to get out. You're trying to tie yourself to something bigger than you are, right? Like, oh, okay, I'm going to be a part of this mission, part of this. And it has a good thing, like you get the packages delivered that helps out so many people, especially during COVID, or heck, when my wife was pregnant. Like, it's like, oh, good, I don't have to worry about this. So that's a kind of a good thing to tie yourself to. But I'll tell you, there's nothing like this family business, and it's pretty amazing to see what they do and the level of care that they give to their guys. And I don't see that everywhere.
Yeah, I would agree. And I've worked with some pretty big companies that maybe at the top they're really good at it, but when it gets down to the mid-level leadership, maybe that changes. I think the company I work for now, we've been around 136 years, I think, and it's been tweaked over that long time. And we've got a small team here in Dallas that it still kind of has that family feel here locally. But it boils down to the team you're working with. Like you said earlier, you walk out in the field and you're like, man, these are like guys that I had downrange with me that were on my team. So I think it really does boil down to that. But I would agree with you on the family run company aspect. I had the wrong mindset. I'm thinking, man, I want to work for this massive company, huge firm that has a gorgeous office and all that. And I have worked at some companies that were great that did have that. But does that really mean they're going to treat you right? Does that really mean that they're going to really care for you and your family like a member of their family? So look at a company that does that regardless of size.
Absolutely. Don't write it out just because it doesn't have a huge name.
Yeah. Well, let me ask this. What the big issue we're having right now in the industry is people, and just getting people in the industry. And that's why I started this whole thing. So if you've got folks that are listening that are about to transition out, or they're preparing to get out, and they're looking for something to do, and kind of the world's their oyster, what would you say to them to try to convince them to join the construction industry?
Well, Scott, I was telling you, this is, believe it or not, that actually a very hard thing for me to do is a podcast like this. This is a first for me. I've been asked several times to be on other people's podcasts, and I was like, no, can't do it. No.
Suckers, yeah. I got him.
Right. Even at work, we do so our mascot is Ernie the Duck, right? So we have the whole exterior facade, and everything's waterproof. So that's where the duck comes from, watertight. But anyways,
yeah,
we do this thing called a documentary, right? Where it's essentially a documentary or a simple simple few questions. Just write a little bit about yourself, and the company shares it. It's been almost 2 years, and the marketing team's like, "Hey Tim, will you do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll get to it." It's literally the hardest thing for me to do for whatever reason. And same with this. Like it was like you said that you pushed me off, or like your schedules, but I kind of neglected it a bit. But to answer your question, like this whole interview, if you will, this whole podcast, I think the reason behind it is to try and get those people that are transitioning from the military to consider construction, and that to me maybe suck it up and just get over it, because it's worth it. And sharing this on LinkedIn, sharing it with people that are in that stage of their life, hopefully it'll help them, at least expose them to other opportunities, or have them talk to other people. Maybe they recognize another individual who might benefit from it. So hopefully something that I've said in this hour-long discussion might resonate with somebody and help improve their life.
Tim, I appreciate your time, man. And I'm really glad that we finally got to link up, and I don't think this is the last of our long distance relationship, if you will. And we'll have to figure out a time if you're down here to roll together here in Texas, or I'll find an excuse to go back up north, man. So yeah, I really appreciate your insight, and I love getting to talk to guys from your community that have transitioned into the industry. If folks want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
I would say LinkedIn is probably the best way. It's just Tim Welcher on LinkedIn. I don't have a huge presence on there, obviously, but that's an easier way to kind of let people. Well, one, I want to encourage military people to get on that platform, because it does work. That's how I found you, is LinkedIn with Adam. So it's effective. I'm not going to give him a phone number right off the bat when I got on the podcast for everybody to call. So I'd say LinkedIn's probably the best bet there. And then if they're in the area, like EDA Contractors is the company I work with. If they want to join the team, happy to take a resume, talk to them, or help them out along the way. Or find me at a jiu-jitsu gym.
There you go. See what they're really made of. By the way,
after this podcast is over, we can stop and hop on. We'll talk jiu-jitsu all you want.
All right. I love it. All right, Tim. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, Scott. It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir. If you're a military veteran in the construction industry, or you're in the construction industry and support our military vets, and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, you can find me at constructionvetpodcast@gmail.com, or send me a message on LinkedIn. You can find me there at Scott Friend. Let's share the stories and motivate others.